Time for our extra special today, and it's us spotlighting our Nigerian football heroes and how the system fails them, as always. The death of Super Eagles legend Peter Rufai at 61 provoked an emotional backlash. Federal and NFF officials are being accused of ignoring players in their twilight years, of only celebrating them in death. Rufai, Nigeria's first World Cup goalkeeper in 1994 and 96, and a pillar of the national team, died quietly battling illness and reportedly lacking adequate medical support. Fans and former teammates like Etim Esin called the neglect heartbreaking, asking what was stopping the government from helping him while he was alive. Comedian Bovi and others lamented that our heroes are remembered and rewarded only after death. This isn't just Rufai's story. It's Nigeria's sports system under its recurring neglect. Federations, governments, and sponsors deliver applause at finals, but disappear when legends age. Today's report was put together by News Central's correspondent, sports correspondent Udoka, Nwachukwu, and also the entire sport desk that chronicles Rufai's legacy. So take a look as we play for you.
Goalkeepers are regarded as the last line of any team's defense. After the opposition has bypassed players and defensive tactics, the fate of the team rests upon the reflexes of their goalkeeper to save them. They save everything: bullet headers, curling free kicks, long range and short range shots. But the only thing that no goalkeeper can save is that one inevitable shot from the cold and unerring feet of death. And on the 3rd of July 2025, in cold, wet conditions, the legendary goalkeeper Peter Rufai could not save the one shot that all men must concede. The former Nigerian international goalkeeper died at the age of 61 following a long illness. Fondly nicknamed Dodo Manyana, he was renowned for his quick reflexes and acrobatic saves. The nickname became synonymous with his dominant presence between the posts.
Out to the side, could this be the equaliser? No, great save. Rufai's in there.
He was a true pioneer of modern goalkeeping in Nigeria, playing a major role in Nigeria's rise in international football in the 1990s and paving the way for many football players to take their talents beyond the shores of Nigeria. Born on the 24th of August 1963 in Lagos State, into a royal family in the Edim area, Rufai was known for his agility, calm presence in goal, and leadership skills. He earned over 60 caps for the Super Eagles and became the first Nigerian goalkeeper to play in the UEFA Champions League. But before then, Rufai's club career took him across several countries and leagues. He began playing professionally in Nigeria with Stationery Stores FC and Famous Scorpions, before moving to Benin Republic in 1986 with AS Dragons FC the Olueme, becoming the first Nigerian goalkeeper to play internationally. He then moved to Europe in the late 1980s, playing for Lokeren and then Beveren, both in Belgium. Again, becoming the first Nigerian goalkeeper to play professional football in Europe. He also played in the Netherlands with Go Ahead Eagles and in Portugal with Farense. In 1983, he made his debut for Nigeria and went on to serve the national team for more than a decade. He scored a goal during Nigeria's 6-0 win over Ethiopia in an AFCON qualification game in 1993, becoming the first goalkeeper to score a goal for the national team. He was in goal for the Super Eagles during their AFCON victory in 1994, making crucial saves as Nigeria defeated Zambia 2-1 in the final.
And in the end, Nigeria, narrowly the stronger over 90 minutes, are the 1994 African Nations Cup winners.
That same year, Rufai was Nigeria's #1 at the 1994 FIFA World Cup, the country's first ever appearance at the tournament. In 1997, he made history by becoming one of the few Nigerian goalkeepers to play in the Spanish La Liga, where he played for Hercules and later Deportivo La Coruna. He ended his club career at Gil Vicente in Portugal. Rufai retired from international football after the 1998 World Cup, but remained one of the most respected figures in Nigerian football history. After retirement, Rufai focused on sports development and football mentorship in Nigeria. He returned to the classroom in 2023, enrolling at the National Institute for Sports in Lagos to obtain formal coaching qualifications. Committed to youth development, Rufai established the Star of Football Academy in Lagos. He is also a vocal advocate for balancing academics and sports, and he has encouraged Nigerian parents to support their children's football dreams alongside education. He also dabbled in media work and occasionally featured as a guest analyst on television during major international tournaments. Peter Rufai, the legendary shot stopper who stopped great football players from scoring, could not stop death from scoring. He is the 6th member of the glorious class of '94 who won the 1994 Africa Cup of Nations to have passed away following the deaths of Wilfred Agbonivare, Stephen Keshi, Uche Okafor, Thompson Oliha, and Rashidi Ekini.
I want to pay a tribute to my late friend, legendary Peter Rufai. Unfortunately, we have to address him now as late, but it is what it is. May so rest in peace. The shocking news and the wave, it was tough. It was tough. Peter Rufai, that I knew, was a top professional, disciplined human being, jokes when he needs to, and be serious when he needs to. But having lost Rufai is a big blow and a big loss to the entire football community. What can we do? God give it, God take it. And I pray Almighty God to give the family the strength to swallow this bitter pill. It isn't the bitter pill to swallow. For us to recover from this, it's going to take a while. But Peter Rufai will always remain in the hearts of every one of us. At this point, I want to say bye and continue to rest in peace.
The biggest legacy Peter Rufai leaves behind is that he was always ready to defend the national colors no matter the situation. As the lights guide Peter Rufai to his heavenly home to join his comrades, he leaves behind a nation who will forever remain grateful and proud to have called him Nigeria's #1. There will always be one Dodo Mayana. For New Central TV, Udoka, Nwachukwu.
I'm sure that's going to hit differently with different people. I'm glad we got to play that here on Breakfast Extra. Summing up the system, well, it's giving a very glamorous view initially, but then again, right after the lights go out, it's not so glamorous. We're joined by Tunde Koiki, head of the sports editor's desk here at News Central. And, well, Tunde, you're welcome. And
thank you.
You had a special spot in your heart for this individual, and there's stories that are untold. I know that you scripted that, by the way. That was...
well, great work by Udoka.
It
was a real tearjerker, by the way.
So yeah, that's fantastic.
It was a wonderful tribute. No, of course, it was a wonderful tribute, I must say. We played it yesterday as well. It was a fantastic tribute that needed to be done.
Yeah.
But there's a special reason why you're here.
Exactly.
Right? A very, very special one. Not only are you the head of the sports team, but most importantly, you have a personal relationship with Peter Rufai.
Yeah, I actually grew up knowing Peter Rufai. I grew up in a street called the Fagba Imu Street in the Butemeta, and his aunt lived right beside our building. So he would come regularly when he was in the country with his wife, with his kids. He would come and say hi, and every time he showed up, there was bedlam. Hey, Rufai, Rufai, Rufai. Everybody wanted to get a piece of him. Everybody wanted to shake his hand.
Everybody wanted to be with him. You could see he was slightly nervous, but one thing he was always unfailingly polite. He was always very personable.
How is it like growing up with like superstars living next door?
You know, it's interesting because the same lady, his aunt, was also related to Nigerian actress Taiwo Ajayi Lycett.
Oh,
so she would come to as well. So it was amazing. It was an interesting childhood because Rufai had a story that really should have been a Nollywood movie.
Yeah.
He wasn't born in Lagos. He was actually born in northern Nigeria, which is why, and he grew up in Port Harcourt, which is why when he speaks, you can't really find any trace of Yoruba inflection in his speech. And he rarely converses in Yoruba. He prefers to speak English. This was because just before the troubles of the Civil War, he spent they were in northern Nigeria. His father escaped, ran back to Lagos. His mother also took him to Port Harcourt. But interestingly, from what I've gathered, his first name wasn't actually Peter. It was probably a Muslim name. So if you just suppose that with the troubles of them, they didn't want him to have any trouble with, okay, he's a northerner, they would lynch him or anything like that. So they gave him the name Peter Rufai. Now, he grew up in Port Harcourt, got into goalkeeping by accident. I think they were playing a football game. Then his team was, the goalkeeper got angry and left, so he just jumped into the post. Yeah. And from there, it became history.
Tell us how he got to be called Dodo Mayana.
That's another interesting story as well. So he was given the name Dodo by Peter Fregene. Peter Fregene was also an Irish goalkeeper. Now, there were 4 goalkeepers in camp that time. There was Emmanuel Okala, there was Besto Bedegbe, there was Peter Fregene, and he was the youngest. Now, they were training in Portugal ahead of a competition there. I think it was also Gloria, who was the coach of the Nigerian national team then. So the other goalkeepers went and did their thing. Then he came in last, being the youngest. And the crowd that were watching in the stands, the Portuguese crowd, they were so amazed by what he was doing and everything. But they'd been hearing them call him Dodo, Dodo, Dodo. They didn't know that wasn't his name. So when it was done, everybody was, so training is over. So Dodo, and they look at him and he said,
Mayana.
So there's a Portuguese word for tomorrow is Amayana. Amaya, actually.
Amaya, okay.
Amaya. So it became a play on Dodo, Mayana. So they were asking him, Dodo, are you done? He said, Amaya. I'll be here tomorrow. So that's how it became Dodo Mayana.
Interesting. Very interesting. Now, let's face the sad and hard facts here, that he lived a life in his latter life of neglect. We don't know exactly what illness he was going through and how it resulted in his death. But there's a bigger thing here, ill concepts here to look at, and it's how Nigeria actually does not regard its heroes. I mean, if you talk about football, the first name that comes to my mind growing up would be Dodo Mayana. It would be Peter Rufai. I almost had the privilege of meeting him once. I was looking forward to that, but never got to. Back then, I used to work at a sports radio station, but that never happened. So it's much more than just a superhero. He's a legacy. How can we let such a legacy just lights out like that? And how does this also affect other sports heroes in Nigeria?
It's interesting you should say that, because at this moment now, Nigeria is dealing with a crisis where a lot of athletes are losing faith in the system. You might have heard the celebrated case of Favour Ofili, one of Nigeria's most promising young athletes who's already considering taking up Turkish leadership, Turkish citizenship. And this was very simply because of the fact that she'd been failed by the system here in Nigeria. She didn't. She went to the Tokyo Olympic Games. She wasn't allowed to compete because of ineptitude on the part of the federation. Also, at the last Olympic Games in Paris, she didn't compete in the women's 100-meter race because of some other issues as well. That's 2 consecutive Olympic Games. And if you're an athlete in Nigeria, if you're in track and field, that's where you make money. The Olympic Games and the World Championships. That's where the sponsors give you bonuses for appearance fees, for making it to the final, for podium places. And that's where you make money. So she'd been denied twice of that opportunity. And she thought, why continue with this? And this is really the problem. You look, and it's not an isolated case. You look at likes of Teslim Balogun, Rashidi Yekini, Muda Lawal. There's a long list, Hogan Kidbasi, Dick Tiger. There's a long list of decorated sportsmen who have given their all for this country, but in their latter years, they are neglected. The later Kayode Tijani, used to chronicle how the graveyard of Muda Lawal had been turned into a trash heap. Wow. That shows you the kind of neglect that they suffered even after death. But you ask yourself, how do they honor sports heroes in other climes, in so-called developed countries in the West. You look, they name edifices after them. They are giving, primary care. They are giving, a pride of place in society. You honestly cannot say that is the same here in Nigeria. Yes, we understand that the situations are different because of the different economic indices, but the minimum that is required for anyone who has given his all to serve Nigeria should be at least a befitting end to your life in terms of primary medical care and a proper befitting burial, a state burial minimum. Unfortunately, I cannot think of someone who passed away having won the colors of Nigeria who was given a state burial. Even Stephen Keshi, his burial was, I'm not going to use the word laughable, but it could have been better. It should have been better for a man who was really, was quite a lot. Now, Peter Rufai was from Lagos State. His father was actually the king of Imo. He was actually from the royal family. When his father passed away, they asked him to come and take his father's place, but he was a professional footballer. And then he said, I can't leave my career for this. When he even came to Lagos, believe it or not, he was in Port Harcourt when he came to Lagos. His stationery stores, one of the legendary clubs in football, Nigerian football that time, was scouting for new players. He heard about it, took a night bus, came to Lagos, and he passed the trials. Now, typically in Nigeria, they're about to do some ajibaji. Oh, he's not Yoruba, he's not this. And he said, no. I'm actually from Lagos. This is where I'm from. My father's from Indimu. Then they came looking for his aunt beside my house, who now convinced everyone that, yeah, he's actually our son. He's from this, he's from that, and his family reunited. So you're thinking that if at all anyone should honor him, it should be Lagos. Yeah. Because he was a proud son of this particular soil.
It was a blood part and parcel of the land.
Exactly.
Let's go back to what you were talking. You said Stephen Keshi's, you don't want to use the term laughable, but his burial seemed like it, and at least they all need befitting burial. The lackadaisical attitude of our, MDAs, whether it's a ministry, sports ministry, departments, agencies, it's all the same, right? And so to stop these recurrent neglect of our, of our victors, as I'm going to describe them, who have served this country dutifully and made us proud that their names will continue to be in the hall of history forever. Do you think that social programs sort of, I don't know, I mean, if you look abroad, the UK or the US, there's services that they get, there's payment they get every month, should that start be something that now needs to be legislated so far that everyone who has served in sports, military, the police service, I mean, police, they do get, but before they even get the money, it's hard, that they start, do you think that way it can work?
You see, Nigeria is a country of incredible extremes and paradoxes. Now, in this country, we have a stadium named after a despot, a man who nearly ran in this country into the ground, Sani Abacha. Go across the world, you never find a stadium named after Pol Pot, Augusto Pinochet, or Hitler. But you find a stadium named after Sani Abacha in this country. That's absolutely incredible. In this same country, we have state governors who have looted the till, yet you still have them receiving fantastic pensions. They have a house in Lagos, a house in Abuja, and this and that. But those who actually put their bodies, their blood, their sweat, their youth on the line, their lives on the line, like you mentioned, military personnel, sportsmen and women, the likes of Outrage, who died in active service.
Yes.
Those who put their bodies on the line, they are forgotten and neglected. So I totally agree.
Outrage started, I remember my little cousin, about 5 years, we're passing through stadium, and she goes, what's his dad? Thing. And then I start to say, she's like, that's a man, she goes, that's a man, because it's covered in grime and dirt, that isn't even maintained. Yeah, no, it's not painted.
That just goes to show you, even in small ways, how
we don't even have a Hall of Fame. A Hall of Fame for Nigerian.
I think you touched on something even better than Hall of Fame. I mean, Judith also touched on it. When you talk about what is owed people who have served Nigeria, at least a good pension, at least housing and health care. In the sports industry, how come these are taking the back seats, if at all they are awarded seats at all?
That's because sports is never really given primary place.
But it makes so much money.
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
we have...
And it also, and it's also
such
a major
allocation
unifier.
For exactly.
The
major unifier, there you go.
The 1994 team that won the Africa Cup of Nations, in 1994, they just got their houses that were promised to them decades later, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? That they don't really care about these people. And that's the honest truth. So we should really be doing much more for them. I agree with what Judith said. There should be, like, in other climes, there's social security for everyone, not necessarily for heroes.
Yeah.
But there should be one put primarily in place for, members of the armed forces, for the police, and for sportsmen. Because their service is different from the service that you and I render. A lot of people have argued that, look, these are professional sportsmen, they earn money in their prime, in their time, but let's be honest, how much did they earn back then?
Again, and also, what's your business, how much they earned as well? It's like, okay, so they earn money, and so does that change the fact that they should not be honored and they should not be taken care of? If I'm earning, that is my work. I worked for it. Don't be policing how much I earn. Oh, you made money, you should be taking care of it.
The honest truth really is that the minimum required, the minimum that they should get is at least some kind of health benefits, which ensures that they can walk into any government hospital and receive treatment free of charge. Then they should also receive a state burial. A state, I'm not saying they should name, we don't have too many edifices to be named after anybody, but the minimum required is state burial and proper medical care.
We're going to be revealing a couple of pictures now of some past heroes whom we thought or think that could have at least had better remembrance or been remembered in their heydays better by the system. While this is going through, I'm going to ask how the passing of Peter Rufai and other sports veterans who were neglected in their heydays has affected grassroots sports. What's the outlook for people who want to go into sports? Is there that drive to actually even want to go into sports anymore? Because I don't see stadium as populated as what it used to be before, and I go there regularly, and it's dwindling.
It's interesting that because Christian Nwachukwu, who was captain of the team that won the 1980 Cup of Nations, was also former coach of the Super Eagles himself. He died just a few months ago, and he hasn't been buried yet. So everybody's still hoping that maybe finally somebody will give a former sports star a befitting burial. And while he was alive, he had health challenges as well. It took the intervention of private, high net worth individuals to ensure that he received the kind of care that he got. I think it was the MD, Tedola, who actually stepped in and actually sponsored his medical bills, who ensured that he was given some kind of proper attention. And it doesn't have to fall on private individuals to do this. These players or these athletes, these sportsmen, they played for the Nigerian national team. They
brand Nigeria.
They brand Nigeria, the country Nigeria. The national anthem was played. They won those honors in the colors of Nigeria. When you go by what you say, believe it or not, there are still hundreds, thousands of people who still believe in a career in sports.
Yeah, ambition.
Today alone, I've gotten 2 calls from a young, incredibly talented boxer who wants to turn pro and is asking me how. They still see it as a future.
Ambition is ambition.
I mean, it's a country of 200 million people. The minimum and the vast majority of it is a young population who still see maybe not education as the way forward, but they see the Anthony Joshuas, they see the Victor Siemens, they see the Ofevo Phillies. They believe they can get to that level with the kind of talent that they possess. So there will always be those who come through the ranks, through the grassroots, who believe that there's a future in sports. And the sad part is, if they are given a choice to represent Nigeria and other countries, there's only one choice they will make.
Of course. The Ophili way.
One choice they will make. Lastly, as we wrap these things up.
Oh, by the way, Philly is being offered a $500,000 sweetener to change her nationality to Turkey.
Would you take it?
That's 750 million naira.
Would you
take it? Nigerian has never gone to 750 million
Speed
naira.
of lightning. Lightning, speed of sound.
You were going to say this.
Which one is faster, sound or light? It's light.
Light.
Speed of lightning. I got to ask you, before we go, if you were to give the last words to Peter as a farewell goodbye, what would it be?
Ooh, will your handkerchiefs here? Because it's going to be a tearjerker.
Judith, that's I've been trying to stop him from crying all
session,
and you have to go and do this now. But please go ahead.
He was an amazing man. He was an amazing man. He was always incredibly polite. And the thing I liked about him was the fact that, like I said, he was always ready to defend Nigeria. There were stories of him arriving at the camp injured, but willing to put his body on the line.
What was one moment, one thing that you remember, something from your childhood that stood out for you that you were like, That's a solid guy.
I met him many years later, and I introduced myself. Of course, he didn't know who I was. And I started reminding him of back in the days, the Butemeta, his aunt, asked about his son, Korede. And he looked at me and said, you definitely know me. You definitely know me quite well. And he was very nice, very personable, very approachable, very warm. He was a hell of a guy. I've never heard anyone have a bad thing to say about Peter Rufai. And that's saying a lot in this industry, where it's a pretty small industry and people know this and know about different things, about different people. But everywhere he went, everyone he met, they always had one thing to say about. He was always incredibly polite, very approachable, and very, very down to earth. So I think that's the biggest tribute I can pay to him.
Your farewell words to him. Your farewell words, you haven't done it.
Farewell, well, like I said, he was always ready. He was always ready for everything, to defend Nigeria. So I can just hope that when he gets he can wait for us in heaven, all those who loved him.
All those who loved him.